Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, Paul Sanneman. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source. We help contractors build great teams. Paul Braveno, which I hope I got that right, from Nova Coaching is my guest today. So, Paul, tell me about your background and how you got into coaching and why people should listen to what you have to say.
Sure. So I came to United States back in 1998 when I was still 15 years old with my family. We moved from Ukraine and I finished high school here. I went to 11th and 12th grade. My first job was Butler Heating and Air Conditioning. I was installing AC units for about a year. I absolutely hated that job with all my
Hmm,
being.
I
And I
see.
quit and I said construction is not for me. And I was just so done with it. However, interestingly enough, shortly after, about 4 or 5 years later on, I went to college for business administration because I wanted to open up my own business. And I did about 1 year. It was a private college 2 year program. Towards the end of the first year, I was offered a position in a small at that time construction company to work in administrative role. And that company was really small. They didn't even have an office. They didn't even have like a computer. And I was so
Hmm,
excited because I've learned all this stuff about business administration,
right.
QuickBooks and spreadsheets. And basically I started building the office for this company, and I was more excited about the opportunity to work next to the owner of the business,
Hmm.
the compensation that they offered me, which was not a lot at that point.
Hmm.
And I've worked in that company for 5 years. It turned into a $60 million business within
Wow.
5 years. And I was
And I'm
managing.
sure you got a big raise, right?
Not really, not really. That's what actually pushed me to start my own business. And I started with cleaning. I started cleaning after construction on these projects. I just hired a couple of girls. I talked to the owner. I said, can I become a vendor? Can I become a cleaning company to clean the projects after construction? And they were running 50, 60, 70 jobs at the same time. So that was my first account, the company I was working for as an employee. That's how my journey started as an entrepreneur. And of course, you can only do that for so long because it's kind of a conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, right? You keep raising your prices. No, no, yes, yes. I can see how there'd be a little conflict of interest.
Yeah, exactly. So it was obvious that I needed to move on, and I was kind of ready to spread my wings. And even though it was never my dream to open up a construction business, because I've been in that industry for so long and I knew so much about that business, naturally I just went into the construction. Although I wasn't a competing business because the company I was working for, they became a restoration company, and I just started doing renovations,
Right.
additions, stuff like that. So I opened up a construction company. I was a general contractor for 13 years. I've done very high-end custom homes, new builds, additions, garage conversions, commercial work, stuff like that. And then about 5 years into construction business, I opened up my retail store and I built a 3,700 square feet showroom dedicated to high-end Italian cabinetry. I
Hmm.
was selling appliances, countertops, flooring. Main product was the cabinets imported from Italy for a very famous brand, Scavolini. I don't know if you heard of it. They've been around for 60 years. They have 1,300 stores all over the world. And I was the first store in California, first dealer store
Wow, nice.
for about 9 years. So I have a little bit of experience in business. It's been interesting. It's been very challenging. Of course, I had to learn a lot, on the way to where I am now, and got some.
Well, one question for you, since you've been through all this, what would you say to the other entrepreneurs listening to this? What was your biggest mistake and what was your biggest aha that made the biggest difference, like the best and the worst?
The biggest mistake, I think my biggest mistake was in business. I'm just naturally a very kind person, and I like to help people. And in business, you cannot be soft. Business is business. And a lot of times people would take advantage of me, and they would feel really comfortable doing that because I'm just a
Mhm.
nice guy. I like to help people
Mhm.
out. And it wasn't helping me whatsoever in business. This is where I got,
Right.
screwed over a few times. And I had to learn my lessons that I can't really be soft and I can't be too nice to people in business. You have to stand your ground and protect your business and make sure, you protect the interest of the business first. And people, you can't just let them take advantage of you as a business owner.
Right.
You have to stand your ground. You have to protect your business. It's either your business and your family or them, so you have to
Right.
choose wisely. The best decision I've made in my business is learning how to build a team, not just a team, but a great team, because business is all about team. It's not about just me doing everything. It's a teamwork. It's a team effort. So
I guess that's where being a nice guy paid off, right?
that's exactly right. Yes, because people would naturally be drawn to me and follow my leadership. So yeah, I've learned that skill really well. I For the past 3-4 years while I was still running those businesses, I really was like an HR department. It was consistent interviews, hiring, setting people up,
Mhm.
and one of the tips I would like to share for those business owners who are watching this, as far as how to properly hire people. When I was talking to those candidates, I never positioned myself, okay, I'm an employer, you're an employee. It was always more of a partnership agreement.
Mhm.
This is what I would always tell them. I am here to provide opportunities. I'm here to give you an opportunity, give you your department, and I'm here to provide you with resources, support, and make sure that you're successful in your role, because your success is my success. If you're successful, I'm
Right.
successful. I'm not here to micromanage you, tell you what to do every step of the way, but I'm here to support you. I'm your biggest advocate. So we're in this boat together. And that's how I would structure my conversation. And usually people don't hear that during the interviews. So
Right.
it was always working really well.
Well, say who's your best and your worst employee?
Who's the best and who's the worst?
Yeah, just you don't need to mention names, obviously, but just John and Mary, just pick names. But just curious why, because we all have our best and worst, and I'm curious because you're a lot of experience in HR. How that worked out for you?
So I would say the best employee would be the employee that is hungry, willing to learn, flexible, and they just want to grow. They understand that there is this growth opportunity. They want to learn
Mhm.
the skill, they want to get better, and they know how to follow, because in order for you to become a leader, you first have to become a good follower. You have to learn how to follow. That's what I was doing when I was working for that company initially. I was literally just like a sponge. I was like taking everything in I can. I was watching the owner really, really closely, how he solves problems, how he hires people, how he fires people, like everything, how he handles different situations. I was just like a sponge. I was learning and learning and learning and doing my best at my work. I was treating that company as my own business,
Right.
kind of mentally preparing myself to get into the role of an entrepreneur, because that was my goal from the beginning. So I've had these type of employees that were just really, really like me when I was, working. They were just like sponges. They just follow everything. I give them instructions, I correct them, and they're not becoming defensive about correction. They accept it. They understand that it's good for them because that's what's going to make them better in their job. And they're hungry to learn and grow. And I've seen, I've actually, it's an interesting story. I've hired this one very young girl actually as an estimator for my construction company. And when you look at her, she's young, she was kind of like thin, smaller girl. And construction, estimating,
Yeah. It's a
okay.
man's world in construction. We know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but what I saw in her, I saw the fire in her eyes. I saw how passionate she was about construction. She said my father-in-law was basically like a real estate investor, and I would help him manage the job. She showed me her little portfolio with these pictures of, flips. They weren't like
Right.
nothing custom or pretty. And I saw that fire, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give this girl a chance. I want to see what we can do here. And she was so flexible. She was so easy to shape and mold. She was just like, she was really good at her job, and she became the number one closer in our company between all the
Mhm.
salespeople. And I actually promoted her to be a sales manager. She was training other salespeople. She was
Right.
doing all this training and meetings, and she just became so good. And that shows how much that drive and hunger makes a difference for an
Mhm.
employee. You want to be someone, start where you at and do the best you can where you
Mhm.
at, and you will grow and you will succeed. So that's like an example of the best employee. The worst employees, I would say the ones that are lazy, dishonest. They're always trying to, you know, find a way how to cheat and steal and do something shady. And I've had salespeople
Mhm.
that would go out there and try to basically steal that client and
Mhm.
do something else with that job. And you catch them pretty fast and you just get rid of
Right.
them. Because dishonesty in business, if I catch people stealing and cheating and lying,
You're
that's
done.
red flag. You're
You
out.
got it. So let me tell you, I've been a coach for many years. My biggest problem as a coach was trying to convert people that were craftspeople, like, carpenters. They really knew how to do their job well, but freeing a craftsperson to an entrepreneur, that sudden mind shift. How do
Mhm.
you help contractors make that shift?
That's a great question, deep question. And obviously everybody's different. So you kind of have to start where they at mentally and start
Mhm.
working there. Some are more entrepreneurial, some are less. And it's just having those conversations with them and kind of start making that mindset shift, in them, and kind of start showing them how it works in the business and how important it is to build systems and build teams in order for them to actually own a business as opposed to being self-employed person
Right,
who created themselves a glorified job.
right.
But it's actually not easy a lot of times because they're so stuck in their ways and they think that's the only way it works. So you
Mhm.
almost have to, like, I almost feel like I'm in the gym pushing weights,
Right.
I'm trying to, like, come on, like I have to kind of create some kind of movement in there, kind of start shaking them up a
Right.
little
Well,
bit.
the challenge is having them be accountable to you without making them wrong, right? Because, they're paying you money, so you're not their boss. You can't tell them what to
Exactly.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they're doing something like you haven't got a plan, your time management isn't any good, you're hiring these people that you should probably fire, and convincing them to do things that's in their best interest without upsetting them. You've probably
Yes.
been there, right?
And that is actually a very challenging, moment in coaching where you have to have this balance where you almost want to, kind of like give them a little slap, but at the same time, you understand they're my clients, they're paying me.
Right.
I have to do it in such a nice way. So that becomes a little bit tricky. But, I think I've been doing a pretty good job with that because I did see a lot of shifts, a lot of changes in
Well, tell me, you don't have to name names, but tell me of a success story of a contractor or somebody in business that you've worked with that you've helped make that transition and is now doing much better than before you worked with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've coached, this is a husband and wife, and husband was able to get some accounts from these big property management companies. And he was able to get all this work that they would give him, but he was doing a lot of stuff himself, right? He's just such a handy guy. He just feels like he needs to be buying materials. He needs to literally go and change those plugs himself, and he needs to accommodate every request. And when I started coaching, he actually called me and he's like, Paul, I have all this work. I'm so busy. I want to scale, I want to grow, but I'm so stuck. I don't even know what to do because I'm going crazy over here. And
Right.
he saw my content about building an operating system that will free you up, and like the business can work without you if you set it the right
Mhm.
way. And I'm like, absolutely. Let's jump on the call. Let's chat. They sign up with my coaching program. That was the best decision of their lives. I'm actually coaching them now on their cleaning business. They now
Mhm.
own a cleaning business as well. And we started with the mindset shift, what we just discussed earlier,
Mhm.
because that was the first step in the process, changing the mindset. And one of the first things we had to change in the mindset was learning how to delegate responsibilities and how to trust people to do the work. You know, it's sometimes it's just very hard because the business owner thinks only they can do that job
Right.
way and
Well,
no.
the thing would be, I'm sure you've seen this. Well, I've tried that before. I trusted this guy. He messed up the job. It cost me way more money because he didn't do it right. So I'm never going to trust anybody again. I go, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. They have that fear. They maybe tried it, it didn't work. But, you know, my response to that is always this. Yes, during this process of building a team, you will get bad apples. And that's normal. That's just the name of the game. That your job is to recognize the bad apple and get rid of it as quickly as possible. Hire a new person, set them up, show them the way, you know, and then you will start accumulating good people and start building a good team around you. And then at some point, you can actually start letting go and you can let the team start pushing it where you're the
Right.
visionary, you're the CEO. Now you actually own a business like a true CEO, as opposed to being a self-employed guy who does everything himself.
Right.
Once we started building those systems, once he started understanding that, everything started changing. You know, like you know, like it was interesting watching him when I told him like you can actually sub things out like a contractor. You can sub things out. Just do this, you know, mark it up, sub it out, let them do everything, let them be responsible for the jobs, and just watch the job being done without you really being involved. You are involved on the highest level. Of course, you're still communicating with the client, you're still sending out the change orders, but they are doing the work. And he tried that. It was really difficult for him to, and he's like, Paul, this is so awesome. Like, this is actually easy peasy. Construction
Right.
doesn't even have to be that difficult. You know, I can
Right.
just basically become broker for these jobs and resell these jobs to
Right.
subcontractors and make my money. I'm like, yes. And that's the only way you can scale. Because if you're doing everything yourself, you're limited with time. You can only
Right.
get this many projects at the same time. But if you start delegating and start giving the job to other contractors, you can have unlimited amount of projects and you can have a big operation, 7, 8 figure operation.
Right. Well, I
So
know to me, the only thing that are important in any kind of construction is the ability to attract quality clients and quality employees. Because you've got really good clients or really good employees, it's great business. But if your
yes,
clients are marginal, your points aren't any good, it's horrible, right?
yes, yes, absolutely.
So, Paul, how do people get in touch with you? What do you charge? How would somebody get involved with you for coaching?
So the first thing what we do is we schedule that initial strategy call, because before I don't work with everybody. I want to make sure it's a good fit. You know, I want to make sure that I'm actually able to help that person. That person is driven enough and needs that support and they have that potential. Not everybody qualifies for the program, right? So
Right.
that's why we need to have that initial strategy call so we can dive into the business, dive into the goals, make sure I understand what they're struggling with, what are the stumbling blocks, right? See how I can support them, how I can help them to get to the next level. And that's our initial strategy call. It's free, you know, I'm not charging anything for it. I just want to have that conversation with the person, also explain to them how the program works, you know, what are we going to be doing in the program, how it's going to help them, what kind of results it's going to bring them. And there is basically the cost for the program is there is two ways to pay. One is, you know, they make 3 payments of 3,000, which totals 9,000 for 90 days. Or if they want to save some money and just make one time payment, it's only $7,000. and that covers the 3 months. And that way they'll save, a couple $1,000s. I also offer financing where they can break up the payments up to 24 payments. So the payment would be like somewhere around $200 a month.
Mhm.
But they will see usually the return on their investment, but their second month by the
Right.
60 days. So
That's true.
because it's construction, you get one project that's $100,000 project, you're already paid off for your coaching.
That's true. That's true. So, and then how do they have an initial call? How do they get a hold of you for the initial call?
Initial call. So I have an Instagram account, and underneath in my bio there is a booking link. They can book a strategy call with me by just clicking on that link. They can also DM me. There is also my phone number in my bio. So there is my email there as well. So they can
So they
email.
can go to your website, right, too?
They can go to my website as well. It's also in the Instagram bio. And the website is novaenterprisesllc.com.
Cool.
novaenterprisesllc.com.
Well, I would suggest if you're not where you want to be, that's why I said give Paul a call, because I guarantee whether you use you or not, they're going to learn a lot out of that call, right? It's going to be a positive effect in their life where they choose to use you or not. And I highly encourage you to do that because, I mean, Paul's been there, done that. It's always better to learn from other people's mistakes than your own. It's way less money. So I would suggest you give Paul a call and see what he has to offer. I guarantee you're going to learn something. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate you being here.
Of course, of course. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me over. I really appreciate it, and I hope to talk soon.
Okay, thank you.